if I told you that the strongest walls in the ancient world didn't fall to fire or steel or siege engines, but to silence? What if I told you that an army defeated a fortress without lifting a sword, launching an arrow, or climbing a ladder? There was a city so heavily fortified that it had never been conquered. Its walls were legendary, its gates were sealed, its defenses were absolute. Generations trusted those walls. Kings slept peacefully behind them. Enemies turned away before ever attempting an assault. And then came a people with no visible weapons of war, no battering rams, no catapults, no ladders, only footsteps, only trumpets, and an unsettling obedience. For 6 days they marched in silence. No threats, no chants, no battle cries. And on the 7th day, the sound that rose from the ground shattered not only stone, but fear itself. This is not merely the story of a city collapsing. This is the story of faith confronting fear, of obedience challenging logic, of a God who conquers without force. This is the fall of Jericho. After 40 long years of wandering, Israel stood on the edge of fulfillment. The wilderness had shaped them. Hunger had humbled them. Miracles had sustained them. They had watched the sea split open. They had eaten bread that fell from heaven. They had followed a pillar of fire through the darkness. And now, at last, the river that separated them from promise stood before them. The Jordan overflowed its banks, swift, wide, impassable. Yet once again, God made a way where none seemed possible. The priests stepped into the water carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and the river halted. The flows stopped upstream. The riverbed dried beneath their feet. Israel crossed on dry ground. Behind them, the wilderness. Before them, the land promised generations earlier. And standing directly in their path was Jericho. Jericho was not just another city. It was a symbol, a stronghold guarding the entrance to Canaan, a fortress designed to intimidate and deter, a declaration of human security. Its walls rose high and thick, layered and reinforced. Homes were built into them. Watchtowers lined their edges. The gates were shut tight. No one entered, no one left. The city had heard the stories. They knew about the Red Sea. They knew about the defeated kings east of the Jordan. They knew about the God who traveled with Israel. And fear settled into Jericho like a heavy fog. But fear did not weaken the walls. Fear made them cling to them. For Israel, Jericho was the first obstacle, the first test, the first confrontation between promise and resistance. And it was here that God would reveal something profound. This victory would not be won by strength, because this battle belonged to the Lord. Before Israel ever crossed the Jordan, Joshua acted quietly. He sent 2 men ahead to scout the land. Not an army, not a delegation. 2 men. They moved under cover of darkness, slipping through the outskirts until Jericho loomed before them. Within the city, they sought shelter, and their path led them to a house built directly into the wall. The home belonged to a woman named Rahab. Rahab lived on the margins of society, known yet disregarded, seen yet overlooked. She was a prostitute, and yet, in the unseen spaces of her heart, something remarkable had taken root: faith. Rahab had heard the stories, not rumors, testimonies. She had heard of waters parting, of kings falling, of a God unlike any other, and she believed. When the king of Jericho learned that spies had entered the city, panic spread quickly. Messengers rushed to Rahab's house. The knock was urgent, the command unmistakable: "Bring out the men who came to you." Rahab stood at a crossroads. She could surrender the spies and preserve her standing, or she could risk everything. She chose faith. Rahab hid the men beneath bundles of flax on her roof. She misdirected the soldiers, sending them toward the Jordan. And when the danger passed, she climbed back to the roof. Under the night sky, she spoke words that echoed eternity. "I know that the Lord has given you this land." She did not say hope. She said, "No. We have heard what your God has done. The Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." Then she asked for mercy, not for herself alone, but for her family. The spies agreed. They gave her a sign, a scarlet cord. "Hang this cord from your window. Gather your family inside. When the city falls, you will be spared." Rahab let them down through the wall by rope. As they disappeared into the hills, her fate hung on a thread of faith and a scarlet line. Days later, the spies returned to Joshua with a single message. "The Lord has given us the land. The people are melting with fear." Joshua listened, and then God spoke. But what God commanded defied every military instinct. No assault, no siege, only obedience. "March around the city once a day for 6 days," God said. "Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times. When the trumpets sound, the people will shout, and the walls will fall." No general would have approved this plan. No strategist would have endorsed it. But Joshua trusted the voice that had never failed. He gathered the people and relayed the instructions. There would be no shouting, no talking, only marching. And so they obeyed. On the first day, Israel rose early. The ark moved forward. The priests lifted their trumpets. The people followed in silence. Footsteps circled the city. The sound of ram's horns echoed against stone. From the walls, soldiers stared in confusion. No attack, no threat, only presence. On the 2nd day, they returned, and the 3rd. By the 4th day, mocking turned uneasy. By the 6th day, fear returned to Jericho's streets. The silence was worse than shouting. Something was coming. On the 7th day, everything changed. Israel rose before dawn. Not 1 lap, not 2, 7. Around and around they marched. The priests raised their horns. The blast tore through the air. Joshua lifted his voice, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And the people cried out, a roar of faith, a sound of obedience. The ground shook. Stone groaned, and the walls, those walls trusted for generations, collapsed inward. Jericho fell in moments. But one section of wall remained, a house marked with a scarlet cord, Rahab's house. The spies entered and brought her family out safely. Her faith had saved her, but more than that, it had rewritten her future. Jericho burned. The spoils were devoted to God. Joshua pronounced a curse on anyone who would rebuild the city. And word spread across Canaan. Fear changed sides. Rahab did not return to the margins. She joined Israel. She married. She bore a son. Her lineage would lead to kings and to Christ. From prostitute to promise. From outsider to ancestry. Because faith changes everything. Jericho teaches us something eternal. Victory does not belong to the strong. It belongs to the obedient. Walls fall when faith stands firm, and God still works the same way today. What walls stand in your life? Fear? Shame? Doubt? The past? They may look unbreakable, but obedience is louder than stone. Trust Him and watch the walls fall.